Hello, I have a video today which are 9 things that you need to know if you're doing short and medium term rentals. Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is John and I have been doing rentals for a long time. Actually since, my goodness, like 2006 actually, maybe late 2005. I've pretty much converted, fingers crossed, almost everything to mid-term rentals. But I do have a lot of background in doing some short-term rentals, and I got 9 things today to talk about that you need to know. Here we are in 2024 that you need to know if you're going to be doing rentals. Number one, the first one is Airbnb is becoming more strict on hosts with respect to their host guarantees, which is really pretty much just their rental reimbursement, right? I actually found over the years, I kind of felt like things were easier. Well, I mean, it's really no question about it. It was easier years ago, and as of late, it's been, certainly rather difficult. I will preface that with, I've kind of had my property a long time, so I think that as Airbnb has gotten, more and more market share and has become, unquestionably the dominant player in the space, it's become very competitive, right? So a lot of exceptional properties in there. And in my case, I'm always making upgrades, but at the same time, it might not necessarily be like the Ritz-Carlton, like some of these other, Airbnb places out there. But in general, they've gotten a lot more strict. In fact, the way the basic policy is it's 14 days, right? So you need to basically, what they give you is they give you either 14 days to submit your reimbursement request or before the next guest checks in. So 14 days after they check out, right? So if the next guest checks in 3 days later, you've got to actually submit it within 3 days before that next guest checks in. So basically what I have is I got a little email from a situation this summer. So I had the front door by the driveway is a door with a glass panel, and this glass panel actually broke with this one guest. And I submitted a reimbursement request for it, and it took, well, there's actually a lot more items on that request, so it took a much longer time than usual. But that particular request, they did not grant me, and I'm going to show you the email that they provided on this request. So here is their email to me. After careful review of the available information, we determined that we won't be able to proceed with your host damage protection reimbursement request at this time. We'd like to share how we made a determination and give you context regarding the decision. Items included in your request aren't eligible for reimbursement under the host damage protection terms, which note that damage caused by pre-existing aren't included. It appears the reported damages, weren't caused by the responsible guest or invitee of the guest, which means they aren't eligible for reimbursement under host damage protection. To be eligible, reported damages have been caused by responsible guest and invitee of the guest. If you'd like to know more, click here. So as you can see, I don't know how they determined that. It went on for quite a while, but basically, I think they wanted timestamps on the pictures or something like that. But basically, they just determined that. The window of time that it happened was when it happened. At the end of the day, sometimes it's hard to kind of keep on top of everything that's going on, but that's what they said. So in any case, I have found certainly lately that they've gotten very strict. I will say years ago, let's say go back to like 2019 and 2020, it wasn't really so strict. At least in my opinion, my experience, but as of late, it's gotten very strict. Next item is that bad customers are getting savvier. And this particular item, I believe, folks, is really pertaining to Airbnb, right? I think that, I just not really sure about the data related to people that would be, let's say, an active Airbnb customer, and then they'd go off to like doing a direct booking or going to another site other than Airbnb and thinking they're going to get the same sort of treatment. I mean, it's really quite simple. What's happened is travelers and guests that use Airbnb frequently have figured out that Airbnb will, most certainly cater to them, and Airbnb is very much a pro-traveler and pro-guest platform. So what's happening is a few years ago, back when the host guarantee and reimbursement requests were a little bit easier than they are now, you really just kind of had to worry about a bad review, which obviously bad reviews are terrible, but they are what they are. But that's really the main thing you had to worry about. Nowadays, even this summer, I had a group come in and it was like they were there in like June, and literally right. So the guest also has 14 days too, is my understanding. So as a host, you get until your next checkout or 14 days. So the guest also gets 14 days to actually submit their money request. So they wanted half their money back, and they just took a whole bunch of pictures of all this stuff that was, I say is ridiculous. I mean, that's just, that's my opinion. For example, they literally took off the quilt on the master bed. They took off all the sheets. They took off the mattress pad, the mattress cover, and then also the mattress cover. The mattress pad and the mattress cover are two different things, right? Mattress cover is like a different material. And then the mattress pad goes over the mattress cover. And then they took pictures of the mattress, which didn't really even look that bad. I think there's like a little stain on it. But they just kept taking pictures of stuff. And then ultimately, fortunately, I was able to actually, put my notes together and be able to kind of, formulate some strong counter responses and not have to be subject to all of those, refunds. So basically, what's going on here is if you aren't unquestionably, absolutely confident, in your property that anyone that's going to check in from Airbnb is going to be happy, then you should just be on the lookout for something like that, right? A great alternate is, really to just kind of potentially direct people outside of Airbnb. Like if you want to go direct with them, or you could just take bookings from other sites that are not Airbnb, right? Okay, so number 3 is pricing strategy angles. So with this pricing strategy angles, this is really a couple different things, right? So I would imagine even if you're somebody that doesn't have any experience in renting, whether it's you're renting as a guest or a traveler, or you have done your own rentals, I would imagine that most people would understand that the months of, let's say, May until October, and this means pretty much all through September, but at some point in October, usually around the middle of October, the shorter rentals are going to really dry up, and they're going to become not totally dry up, but just become more scarce, right? So the pricing strategy angles is going to be seasonality in that concept. So with that seasonality, that just means that you can pretty much, even if your place is like, let's say, below average, you're still going to have strong bookings in that May to October timeframe. And even if, again, your place is below average, you're going to have the ability to increase those prices. And one thing I do is pretty much increase the prices for that time frame, really at the beginning of the year, right? And then as time goes on, you get closer. If you have vacancy, you can actually lower those prices as you get closer to that time frame if it's not booked. Another angle, pricing strategy angle, is really the nature of the rentals that you want to do, right? So what I mean by this is the nature of the rentals are whether you want to do longer rentals of, let's say, 1 week or longer, or you want to do shorter rentals. So another strategy that people are doing, or successful hosts are doing, I should say, is they're having really high weekend rates, right? So weekend rates of 600 to 700 or more per night. And what they're doing is they're booking a few weekends of the month, and then they're filling in where they can. So they'll book those premium weekends, and then they'll lower the prices as they see fit as time goes on. So that's one strategy. And then the other strategy is a lot more what I'm doing. As I said earlier, I'm pretty much fingers crossed kind of moving out of the short-term rentals and doing primarily midterm rentals. It's just, at least in my experience, it's number one, it's less hassle, but number two, it provides much stronger average monthly revenue is what I'm seeing. However, if you are really good and you plan to have a lot of properties and you want to do the shorter rentals, have become very good at it, you're able to experience something like, let's say, 85% or higher occupancy with those shorter rentals, you do stand, certainly a strong chance of experiencing rather high average monthly revenues. Okay, so number 4 on this list is that themed properties are proving to perform better. So what I mean by that is it's for short-term rentals, right? So this doesn't mean that they're performing better for short-term rentals than midterm rentals. It means that in general, the data shows that themed properties are performing better than non-themed properties in the short-term rental niche. So what is themed properties? Well, I mean, if you take a look out there, if you look at some of the hosts' content, like other hosts that are doing content on YouTube, I've seen different themed properties like a bachelorette property, like an Airbnb bachelorette property, or an Airbnb like a pickleball palace kind of thing. Those sorts of themed properties are actually performing a lot better. The other thing to keep in mind too is, again, this goes along with more of the kind of, having, shorter periods of high revenue, but things like, music festivals or really big events. For example, here in Southern California, there's the Coachella, music festival out there in, near Palm Springs. And, there's only 2 festivals a year, but there are hosts that, make, a ridiculous amount of money during those times of those festivals. But again, that's really like, I think only a month and a half of those festivals that they do that. But what's happening is they are, doing that, and they're finding their niche and they're finding their profits in those short spikes of revenue, and then filling in their occupancy at other times. Okay, so number 6 here. So it is level up your documentation. So this kind of goes in line with the first item, but in terms of level up your documentation, you're going to need to do it for Airbnb, certainly. So when it comes to Airbnb, if you've got a reimbursement request, you're going to need basically a photo. I mean, you can't even submit it without a photo. So you're going to have to take photos with your phone or whatever your camera is. You're going to need a description. You're going to need a proof of payment, and then more than likely some sort of an invoice. Like if it's a contractor or a plumber or some sort of a service person, or even if you do it yourself, you're going to have to, somehow create an invoice, and a proof of payment showing that something was paid, for that item. So in addition to Airbnb, there might be a situation where, you have to level up your documentation for other things too. Like, let's just say, you make a decision to go to small claims court because you've got to go that route for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not saying that's very common, but, if you choose to go that route, or on VRBO, they actually have a different group called CSA, and that's actually really bad. Meaning I've submitted so many different claims to them, and they never pay anything. It's more like insurance. So if the person books, they'll pay I think $49 for for insurance if something really goes wrong. I have seen the insurance group actually pay for things when things happen to the pool, but really that's about it. But in general, you want to level up your documentation because you're going to need it for Airbnb, but you're also going to need it for other things. Like potentially if you have a homeowners board, like it's a private community or whatever the community is, if you have a homeowners board, you might need to level up that documentation in the event that you have to actually interact with your homeowners board. Okay, the next one on this list is number 7, and it is to do direct bookings on non-Airbnb sites. So there's other, hosts out there that do content on YouTube. And for me, I actually see Airbnb as kind of a risk, to actually do these days. And I say that, I mean, I'm probably in a unique situation because I've had my properties a while. And at the end of the day, I put up a lot of money into these properties over many years, but I don't, I don't spend a fortune to make it like the Ritz-Carlton, right? So I said it before, but if you're not, unquestionably, absolutely confident that anyone going into your property from Airbnb is going to be, absolutely happy, then you're going to have to expect, there might be some issues, there might be unhappy, or maybe reviews. Anyway, the point is that you can get off of Airbnb, right? I found that for the most part, and again, you can't say this in every case, but in general, it's been a little easier with VRBO than Airbnb. And what I mean by this, just the guests, just the people in general are a little easier and don't have such high expectations on VRBO than Airbnb. It's not everyone. There's people from VRBO that there's issues with too, but in general, it's become a lot more difficult with Airbnb. And then there are other sites that you can use too. Like if you wanted to kind of go the route that I'm going, where you accommodate 30-night rentals or more. The other sites you can use are, of course, Zillow. I get a lot of visitors and inquiries from Zillow. There's also, Craigslist, of course, and then there's apartments.com, and then one site out there that's pretty a large amount of inquiries is Furnished Finder. Outside of that, probably the biggest thing you should consider is Google Vacation Rentals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a site that I'm familiar with. With Google Vacation Rentals, you can't just go to Google and do it without a site. You actually have to have a site, and usually the most sensible way to do this is to go and get on a platform that you can pay a few dollars a month to, and then they'll give you access to Google Vacation Rentals. But by the way of accessing that Google Vacation Rentals is that they give you a site for your property. So that individual property will be its own website. So here, let me show you the one I have experience with. Okay, so as you can see, this is right here, Google Vacation Rental Partners list. It's the list of their approved partners. There's a lot of them here, and then the one I said that I'm showing you right now is called Lodgify. That's the one I have experience with, Lodgify. So as you can see, it's a rather I guess it's not that long of a list, but somewhat of a lengthy list. So what I'm showing you here is with respect to Lodgify, pretty interesting. Take a look there. I did a video. I mean, I have another video that I did, which is kind of a longer how to set up a rental video. And at that time, it was actually $13. I think it was earlier this year. It was, and this is 2024. It was $13. So right now their starter package is $16 a month. But if you think about it, it's like, that's kind of a lot, $16 a month. I mean, geez, I think that might be 2 coffees at Starbucks nowadays, with tax and everything. And you kind of get a lot, with that. And the main thing is not only are you getting access to Google Vacation Rental Partners, and oh, by the way, it's totally free, to get access to Google Vacation Rental Partners other than paying this group, but they give you a site. So just to give you an idea of how your property listing will look. So these are their templates, right? So you could just go in and choose one of their templates, and then you just would plug your pictures in and take a look at this. You would plug your pictures in, your rustic retreat, and do your little descriptions and there you go. And then that would be, effectively, that would be your own property listing for your particular rental. And just so you know, I mean, you're not going to have to, when it comes to putting your property like off of Airbnb, and off of, let's say, VRBO, you can do, like I said, Zillow, apartments.com. You can do Craigslist, Furnish Finder. These are their own sites. So you don't need Lodgify. You don't need to have your own property website to get on Craigslist and Zillow and apartments.com. They are effectively your property site on those places. But to get onto Google Vacation Rentals, you do need your own property site. Okay, so number 8, really super simple and straightforward, but always be resourceful to grow your business. Obviously anyone who's ever had a business, or even, my goodness, been an employee for that matter, probably knows this. It's really simply a system of, managing your expenses to the best of your ability, as, when you're having your own rental business, and then also maximizing, your revenue as much as you can. Managing your expenses, obviously pretty straightforward. You want to get as many bids as you can. If you have something new, you just hop on Yelp in your local area, and you're just gonna, have at it. Text them and email them and call them, and just find as many service providers as you can that have good ratings to kind of come and take care of your needs. It's very important to manage your expenses, because the reality is that with Airbnb and doing rentals, it can be a lot of expenses, for that business. So it can, drastically affect your margins if you have an emergency situation, or you have a very unexpected large expense repair that you have to do. So you have to manage your expenses. Outside of that, when it comes to maximizing your revenue output, really that means, don't just sit back on Airbnb and VRBO, let the inquiries come in. And then there's also a data piece I want to share with you. Airbnb found that during the year of 2022, hosts that updated their prices at least 4 times during the calendar year of 2022 had 30% more nights booked than those that didn't. So basically just 30%, more occupancy. So with respect to that, it's being actively managing your calendar in terms of the way that your pricing is. And then it's also making sure that you're on sites other than Airbnb. And the other thing, and this is actually could be a very interesting opportunity, is you want to network with other hosts, right? Because there's a lot of co-hosting going on. And like I said throughout this video, fingers crossed, I'm doing all 30-night rentals for all of my properties going forward. And I've actually kind of found a few Facebook groups with a lot of other co-hosts because I might be outsourcing some of my properties to other co-hosts. And what is great about this is that, they're a co-host. They're going to host with you, and you'll get, access to all the different corporations that they already do business with. But in addition to that, even if you don't have a co-hosting relationship with them, you can network with each other and you can give each other leads. And when it comes to midterm rentals, you could be in a situation where you have 3 to 4 clients a year as opposed to, like let's say Airbnb short-term rentals, where you have like 3 to 4 clients a month, if in some cases, sometimes more than that, right? But also, and more importantly, these other groups these other co-hosts that are experienced in doing midterm rentals, quite often are, really in an urgent need to accommodate families, because they'll typically accommodate a family. They go in for 30 nights or 2 months, and then with the right to extend, right? So that's why I say you'll have sometimes 3 to 4 clients a year, and even that, you'll have on average strong occupancy and strong revenue. Okay, and the last one here is another super simple one. Structure your business properly. So what I mean by this is, obviously, you all might understand that you need to set up a corporation if you're going to be doing the rentals, but that's not necessarily what this item is about. It's the concept of very clearly you should be separating your personal expenses from your business expenses if you're going to be, kind of a freelance independent, Airbnb host, right? Or midterm rental host. But basically what it's about is nowadays a lot of lenders and a lot of banks and other groups that provide credit are actually very strict when it comes to Airbnb revenue. In some cases, they won't even count the Airbnb revenue if it's your primary residence that you own and you're receiving Airbnb rental income from it, right? And then another thing is that if it's not that situation, let's say you're doing rental arbitrage or you just don't live there at all, right? A lot of lenders are discounting Airbnb revenue. They're all over the map with the way that they discount it. Now, I will say that that's not the case everywhere, right? New lending programs are popping up all the time, and there are a lot of groups out there that are starting to lend to Airbnb, hosts. But the reality is that every lender is different, and they are, in general, on the more conservative side, and it is, quite a bit trickier to actually get credit for Airbnb revenue. So one thing that some other hosts are doing, and this is other hosts that I'm seeing do content, what they're doing is they're taking their entity and they're splitting up their entities, right? So they're splitting it up into 2 entities. For example, one entity is a property management entity, and then the other entity is the marketing entity. So what would happen in that case is the marketing company does the work to get the bookings, and then the property management company receives the revenue, and then the property management company pays the marketing company. So if you are in a situation where you're getting ready to kick off, a property, or you're, getting your property going, and you need to borrow money to do it, that's something for you to keep in mind. So there you go, everybody. Those are 9 things that you have to keep in mind if you're going to launch a short and medium term rental. Again, everybody, my name is John Howard. I do videos on this, kind of pretty much switching everything to midterm rentals for me. If you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me regarding this content about midterm rentals or rentals in general, you can certainly do so. I've got an email for that, socalrentalguy @gmail, and I'll also put some links, below here. And I do have, certainly a lot of experience, in this realm. I've been doing rentals for a while. I've actually generated probably around $20 million total between rentals and, online businesses. Everybody, if you like this content, you can go ahead and give it a like. You can also consider subscribing to the channel. The thing that's great about rentals in general is that while at times it can always, not necessarily be the best margin business, it is a business that is, in my view, the fastest and the most dependable path to fast and consistent 4- and 5-figure deposits. Okay, everybody, thank you very much, and have a great one.